Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. It's a real honor and a privilege to be able to reply to the speech from the throne, which was delivered on the occasion of the opening of the second session of the 28th Legislature in Saskatchewan, our lovely province of Saskatchewan. As we know, this will be the last throne speech that Premier will be Premier and his government will be delivering. As we can see, the Premier has not let up or taken time off, if you like, at all. The Premier has been very busy and working for the betterment of this province and the Saskatchewan people. You can only look at this throne speech and see how full it is and how innovative it is to continue to deal with any issues in the province. So I'd like to thank the Premier for his service and for the work he's doing now and right up to the last day that he is in that position. I need to thank a few people, of course. I'd like to thank my wife Cindy, who is an educational assistant in Biggar Central School 2000, and today is her birthday, so happy birthday, Cindy. And recognize my son Marshall, who works in Saskatoon, daughter Alex, who is going to the U of S and is going to graduate with a degree in social work this spring's convocation. My daughter Lacey, who works at Nature Saskatchewan, and her husband Nick, and their two children Soraya and Amanda. Amanda just turned 1 here back in June, so she's a big joy in our household and our heart. I'd like to thank my CA, Janet Hansen, who does an excellent job in the office in Biggar, and she goes out one day to Hepburn to look after the constituents' concern, and we're always available to help wherever we can and she can with constituent concerns and get the issue to a minister's office or help resolve the issues. A number of other people I'd like to recognize and thank. My constituency president, Mayor Ray Sadler. He's the mayor of Biggar, been president for a number of years. He's a great help, and we travel lots together to party functions, and I value his friendship and advice. Vice President Lauren Cornish, who is a great source of advice as well. The Secretary of Biggar Sask Valley, Desiree Heinz. Now, poor Desiree's been having some problems. She has filled in part-time as when Janet's away in my office. She's going through some very difficult times with some medical issues, and her son Zane, who I speak about quite often, is 4 years old, and he lives with us. So my wife Cindy is having to raise a 4-year-old in my absence, and I look forward to seeing Zane when I get back home from the legislature. And a thank you to James Walker, who is Vice Principal of Central School 2000, who is my treasurer, and Dakota Ekman, who's been my long-time membership director and youth director. My constituency, Biggar Sask Valley, of course, changed after the last election, and so it includes the town of Biggar, naturally, and everything north of Highway 14, which is Asquith, and goes right up to Candu, to the boundaries of the Battlefords. It includes much of Highway 16, Riddell, and Maymont, Radisson, Borden, Langham. The new part, of course, the Sask Valley part, is the area between Rostron and Osler, Warman, and Martinsville. So that's the communities of Delmany and Hague, Hepburn, and Waldheim. Goes right to the Saskatchewan River. So it's a great, very friendly people, and constituencies made up of is very much an agriculture constituency. Great farms, and in the constituency, we have more than agriculture in the constituency. Just in the town of Biggar, we're Prairie Malt, and they've been a long-standing business making malt for the brewery industry. AGI, who is a manufacturer making everything from oil tanks to the shaft that was put in at the mine at Bethune. So they're a very innovative family and do great work, employ a lot of people in Biggar. EK Manufacturing is a short line manufacturer making bin sweeps and augers and a number of things like that. In Maymont, it just happened to this year, the Grains Connect terminal was just recently opened, so they're taking grain this fall. So congratulations to them and to the community of Maymont, which they are a valuable asset as well. So I'd just like to get into some of the items in the throne speech, Mr. Deputy Speaker. As our throne speech has outlined, Saskatchewan has enjoyed a decade of growth. The population has grown faster than it has since the earliest days of our province. During the decade, Saskatchewan has grown by 160,000 people, reversing the decline of the previous 2 decades, which of course most of it was under the government of the NDP. You know, you can see it in every town and community, even in the rural areas where the population has grown in Biggar, Sask Valley, as well as in the cities and other parts of the province, where people are buying homes, building homes, and you know, you can see the number of people that now fill our schools and our churches, quite frankly. In the town of Biggar, the largest influx of immigrants are from the Philippines, and most of them are Catholic, so many of them go to church, and our Catholic Church is really growing in also, and a lot of them send their children to the separate school in Biggar, St. Gabriel's, but both the separate and public school has grown. It's the same way right across the province, wherever you go. So that's such a great advantage when you have employment and you have opportunity that brings people in to the province, and there's nothing but good things come out of that growth. Under healthcare, Mr. Deputy Speaker, so a few things have to be pointed out. Since 2007, we have recruited more than 750 new doctors. In the town of Biggar, we have the only hospital that's in the constituency. We have 3 doctors there with the hospital and long-term care. We've also recruited more than 3,400 nurses at every designation. In the province, we've built 13 new long-term care facilities that have opened. New hospitals have been built or under construction, including the Jim Patterson Children's Hospital in Saskatoon and the new Saskatchewan Hospital in North Battleford. In the town of Biggar, as I mentioned, there was a new long-term care home built. It has 54 beds, and the total shareable cost of the project was $22.9 million. The province put up $18.3. So we attached the long-term care home to the hospital and renovated the hospital as well. So we have a great facility with 3 doctors and very good health care in Biggar and in the constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, that's just some of the things in healthcare that our government has done. I mean, we've shortened the surgical wait lists, and a very innovative thing is reduced down to 1 health region. That process is rolling out, and I am very confident that's going to be a great improvement to healthcare in the province. Our government accepted a recommendation made by an advisory board that examined the administrative structure governing healthcare in Saskatchewan. The panel recommended the consolidation of the province's 12 regional health authorities into a single Saskatchewan Health Authority, and it will begin operations in December. So they're very busy putting that in place right now. We've also, under our government's direction, will implement a new organ donation program building on work undertaken by the Standing Committee. The program will be led by the donor physicians who will provide education and support to fellow healthcare providers and champion organ donations across the province. Also, we will also expand the pool of donors by amending regulations to allow for a donation after cardiocirculatory death by implementing a mandatory referral program. and also will continue to explore the option of moving into a presumed consent model of organ donation. I'm really keen on this. I think that's something we should do, but we need to consult with the citizens of Saskatchewan before we move on that. Of course, it's a very important step. Of course, our government also will fulfill its commitment to provide individualized funding for children under the age of 6 diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. And I'd just like to put a bit of more detail on the record. Our government will introduce individualized funding for preschool children under the age of 6 who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, ASD. This session is part of the next budget. The funding of $4,000 annually per child under 6 years of age will begin in 2018-19. The Government of Saskatchewan currently provides nearly $8 million in funding for ASD through the Ministry of Health, which includes $5 million for professional medical support and consultations in health regions. ASD supports are also provided through the Ministry of Education and Social Services. 2017 and 18 to facilitate the transition towards an individualized funding model for ASD services in Saskatchewan from the current model where funding is provided to health regions to hire specialists. Our government established a working group of stakeholders to review best practices in other jurisdictions and provide recommendations to government on issues involved in transitioning to the new model. And that's very exciting. Well, my wife, as I said, is an educational assistant. She works with pretty well children with autism on a regular basis, and it's just one of those conditions that is I don't know, it's perplexing, I guess, to see that, but you know, we are offering help to the families and individuals with those problems. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, under education, this year 21 new schools accommodating more than 11,000 students opened the doors for the first time. 18 of those schools are joint-use facilities built using a P3 or public-private partnership model that reduced construction costs by $100 million. These schools are located on 9 sites in Saskatoon, Regina, Warman, and Martensville, and were completed in less than 2 years. And our government has constructed or renovated 65 schools during the last decade, including several new community schools. And in the constituency of Bigger Sask Valley, a couple of projects, 2008 Bigger and District Daycare project was completed with an investment of $368,000. 2010, the Borden School Roof project, $200,000, and the list goes on with those types of improvements in schools and daycares across the constituency and the province. Our government had an unprecedented $17 billion investment in kindergarten to grade 12 education over the past decade, and has also provided for 875 more teachers and the creation of nearly 6,000 new child care spaces. And child care spaces are so important for families, when both parents are working or single parents. It's so vital, and we have a daycare in Bigger and other communities that help families so much. During this session, our government will introduce legislation that will protect the right to school choice by invoking the notwithstanding clause of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So I applaud the Premier and our government for those for that as well, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Under the area of protecting our communities, as we know earlier this year, the federal government announced its intention to legalize non-medical use of marijuana by July 2018. And despite these concerns, the federal government has not changed its timetable. Therefore, our government has no choice but to prepare for this historic revision to the criminal code. Our government is in the midst of a review process that includes an online public consultation that received nearly 35,000 responses. This review is guided by 4 objectives: preventing the growth of the underground marijuana market, restricting access to minors, and ensuring road and workplace safety, and protecting public health. Once the review is completed this fall, our government will introduce legislation that will govern the sale and distribution of marijuana and online measures to protect public health and safety and enhance public education. During the last decade, more than 600 people have been killed and more than 4,000 people injured in accidents involving drivers impaired by alcohol. And in the last year, our government has introduced a number of measures. These actions include increasing the age at which drivers are prohibited from having any drugs or alcohol in their blood system from 19 and under to 21, and I think that's a very, very good move. Introducing a 3-day vehicle seizure for drivers over the age of 21 and over 21 who are found to have blood alcohol levels between 0.04 and 0.08 for the first time. And another innovative move, because even though a person will not have a criminal record, this is a serious situation where a vehicle is seized, whether it's owned by an employee or a spouse or a family member. That vehicle is out of service for 3 days. So people need to really take a look at their habits about drinking and driving. And of course, making Saskatchewan's ignition interlock laws the toughest in Canada. Another great innovation that we brought in. We will be urging municipalities to allow ride-sharing services to protect within their jurisdiction. Our government will also introduce legislation enabling SGI to offer affordable insurance to drivers working for ride-sourcing companies like Uber and Lyft. And we have brought an innovation to address the concerns of rural crime in Saskatchewan. Our government appointed a committee of government MLAs to consult on measures that might strengthen public safety. And I went to one meeting, and crime, drugs and crime and property theft and damage is a very serious concern in bigger Sask Valley in the northwest, as it is in many other areas. And our government has responded to that, and I'll outline what our government is doing. That has been outlined in the throne speech. Our government acted on the committee's recommendation to create a new Protection and Response Team, or PRT, consisting of 258 armed officers who have the authority to arrest and detain these suspected of committing crimes. The PRT is composed of 120 police officers from the RCMP and municipal police services, 40 commercial vehicle enforcement officers who have been given expanded powers, and 98 conservation officers. The Protection and Response Team will improve response times to emergency calls and increase the visibility of uniformed officers in rural Saskatchewan. Our government has committed nearly $6 million to support the PRT and other initiatives rising from the committee's report. Very innovative and very welcomed by the citizens of my constituency and around the province. Under infrastructure, I touched on a number of infrastructure areas, but during the last decade, our government has invested more than $26 billion to renew and expand Saskatchewan infrastructure. Of that total, $7.4 billion has been committed to the province's highways, and we can go through the list. This record investment resulted in the repair and improvement of 12,000 kilometers of highway and the completion of significant projects such as Saskatoon Circle Drive South Bridge, the St. Louis Bridge, the twinning of Highway 11, passing lanes of Highway 7 and Highway 10. This year work continues on the Regina Bypass, overpasses at Martinsville and Warman, the Saskatoon North Commuter Parkway Bridge, twinning projects on Highways 39, 16, and 7, and passing lanes on Highway 5, among many other projects. And that's and there's many, many more infrastructure projects that our government has invested in. As an example, in my constituency, Delmany, a new stormwater system for $378,000. Hepburn received $228,000 for a water distribution system, and Radisson received $110,000 for a swimming pool reconstruction. So there's many innovations, plus the highways that have been improved that go through the constituency. Last session, our government passed Bill number 40, a legislation that would allow for the sale of up to 49% of the Crown Corporation. This legislation would have enabled the Crown Corporation to enter into a partnership beneficial to the province while ensuring the government remaining the majority owner of that project. Over the last few months, our government has heard many people feel very concerned about this legislation and potential sale of even a small stake in a Crown corporation. And consequently, our government will repeal the provisions of Bill 40 that allow for the sale of partially equity position of a Crown corporation. So our government is listening to the people of Saskatchewan. There's an example of that in this throne speech. Demand for electricity has grown by 25% since 2007 and is expected to increase by another 13% by 2025. SaskPower has responded by investing nearly $8 billion during the last decade to meet increased demand and to replace aging infrastructure. This year, the company expects to allocate another $1.1 billion in capital projects. Since 2008, SaskTel has invested more than $2.6 billion to improve telephone internet service in the province. This year, SaskTel will spend $300 million to expand and enhance its network with a total of $1.1 billion expected to be invested in the next 4 years. To date, so that's very important, infrastructure investment, because one of the concerns we see and here is poor cell and internet service in many parts of the province. So this is there to address that concern. So, Mr. Speaker, our government also recognizes that there's more than 100,000 jobs in our province that depends on exports. During a decade of growth, Saskatchewan exports to emerging markets, particularly in Asia, have grown by staggering amounts. Saskatchewan's exports to China have increased 530% over the past decade to $3 billion per year, or last year. Exports to India are up 272%, $1.5 billion. Pakistan exports are up 293% to $548 million, and exports to Indonesia are up 132% to $543 million. Our government will continue to expand our export markets through further trade missions in these and other countries to the support of trade-focused organizations like the Saskatchewan Trade and Export Partnership. So we're doing great things there, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker. Just want to definitely touch on agriculture. In 2016, Saskatchewan shipped $14.4 billion worth of agriculture products, more than half of all exports. In the coming year, my government will continue to provide strong support to farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses. We will stand up for our agriculture sector in opposing a federal carbon tax and the federal small business tax changes that will hit farmers and ranchers hard. We will work to expand access to important markets across the globe, and we will continue to invest in research through the Agriculture Development Fund, the Global Institute for Food Security, and the Livestock and Forage Centre of Excellence at the University of Saskatchewan. Our support extends to Saskatchewan's value-added food processing industry, which has grown tremendously through the years. There are now more than 300 food companies operating in the province, generating more than $4 billion in revenue and employing 5,000 people. And to build on this momentum, our government will launch an agriculture value-added new growth incentive intended to attract more investment into the sector. My time is running out, Mr. Speaker, but we've done, we're doing great things on the environmental front. SaskPower is expanding its renewable power as well, doubling renewable generation in less than 15 years, and of course investing $1.3 billion in the world's first commercial power plant equipped with a post-combustion carbon capture system. So doing great things there, and SaskPower will continue to do great things on the environmental side. Under the social services, because of our economic growth in the last decade, our government was in a position to invest more than $3.7 billion to support people with disabilities. In 2009, we created the Saskatchewan Shared Income for Disability Program, or SAD, and since then we have increased benefits paid to the recipient of the program 4 times. Government supports more than 4,000 individuals and families with respite and individual day programming. And the list goes on and on and on, Mr. Speaker. I've only touched on some of the things in the throne speech that our government has done and our government will continue to do in the future, Mr. Deputy Speaker. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I will be supporting the throne speech and will not be supporting the amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker.